Declaro abierto.
I declare open the 73rd regular session of the General Assembly and call to order its first plenary meeting. In accordance with Rule 62 of the Rules of Procedure, I now invite representatives to stand and observe 1 minute of silent prayer or meditation.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Please take your seats. I shall now make a statement in my capacity as President of this session of the General Assembly.
Excelencia.
Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, Mr. Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor for me to address you for the first time as President of the United Nations General Assembly. I do so with a profound sense of responsibility and commitment to the United Nations Charter and its foundational principles. I do so with the greatest of respect for the main beneficiaries of the work of this organization, our peoples. I assume my role as PGA representing our beloved region of Latin America and the Caribbean, a region of peace, a region committed to human rights. The presidency of the General Assembly comes as a mark of great distinction for me and also for my country, Ecuador. It signals a recognition of our policy in favor of multilateralism and our solidarity and integration for our people. This year, we are called upon to go beyond the political agenda and the government agenda, which was my priority in the past 11 years. You can be assured that as of today, I will work under the blue banner or flag of our organization for the interests and shared decisions of the 193 member states. Your Excellencies, since I am only the fourth woman to occupy this position in 73 years of the life of the United Nations, I wish to reiterate that I dedicate this presidency to all the women of the world. To all those women engaged in policy and politics, to those women who are fighting for accessing jobs on an equal footing with men, for those women and girl children who are victims of violence, and girls and adolescents clamoring for access to quality information and education. Three great women presided over this assembly in the last 72 years. Vijaya Lakshmi Pandit from India in 1953, Angie Brooks from Liberia in 1969, and Haya Rashid Al Khalifa of Bahrain in 2006. My tribute and homage to them and on their legacy to this organization. I also wish to thank my predecessor, His Excellency Miroslav Lajčák, whose work during the 72nd session was exemplary. I will be benefiting as I work from his achievements, and I will continue with his good practices, especially his early morning dialogues and monthly coordination meetings with the main organs of this organization. We thank President Lychak for his leadership. He was always open to dialogue. He believed in working together. We wish him every success in his functions as he returns to his beloved country, the sister Slovak Republic. Your Excellencies, I have learned as much as I could in these few weeks of transition, and in that time, I was afforded the support of the mission of Ecuador, the support from those delegates of those states that make up the office of the PGA, and I also benefited from the backing and support of the professional staff of the United Nations system. I am here to tell you that we are ready to begin the work of this assembly. Mr. Secretary General, thank you for your support. Thank you for your support in this transition period. Thank you for your counsel and your commitment to these organizations. In accordance with the mandate entrusted to me by the member states, I stand ready to support you in all your initiatives geared towards strengthening the operations of the United Nations system, and in so doing, enhancing the efficiency and the impact of its work on the ground. Your Excellencies, the General Assembly is not only the most democratic and representative body of the United Nations organization. This forum is the most diverse forum for knowledge, cultures, and professions in the world, and faiths in the world. You, my dear colleagues, as representatives and delegates, are actually at the center of global thinking, the greatest and most inclusive such center. You pool your thinking, your knowledge, and your visions to define standards for peaceful coexistence among our nations and governments vis-a-vis their people. And every day you contribute to finding answers to the more pressing problems facing humankind. In 72 years, this assembly has produced and codified the most salient aspects of international law and human rights. There have been many achievements, but we still have huge challenges ahead. We have made significant strides in decolonization, but is still a great more to be done. Every day we work towards building peace and preventing conflicts, but the scourge of war is still present with us. We have made significant strides in terms of agreements to protect the environment and to curb climate change, but the planet and nature continue to suffer and suffer huge risks and threats to the very existence of the human species. We have made huge agreements to protect our peoples and indigenous nationalities, but they continue to be the poorest of the poor. We have made significant strides in the development agenda, first with the MDGs rather, but there are still huge challenges ahead, and they're now covered under the SDGs, just to give you a few examples. We must all be aware that this organization has many challenges and debts to bear. Some debts are being paid. For example, we are now addressing migration through an internationally agreed instrument, which I am sure will be one of the most salient achievements in this session. And I can only hope that we will be witnesses of solutions to other major debts borne by this organization, such as the situation being faced by the brothers and sisters in Palestine. We also have to adapt to these new times. This assembly, for example, must look at the impact of new technologies on the working world, on communications, and on how we live together as societies. Your Excellencies, the contribution of the United Nations as an organization to humanity has been immense. However, its impact and relevance would be even greater if our peoples could feel that what we discuss and agree upon here is something that will impact them directly. We have not managed to connect our peoples to the daily work of this organization, and for this reason, making the United Nations more relevant to all will be the main focus of my work during this session. If we are able to establish this connection in the short term, this will have a dual impact. First, we as an organization will be closer to society, to people, and we will show the role we have to play in their most pressing needs and lives. And secondly, we will have our people as our best allies in implementing at the national level the agreements that we achieve here. For this reason, allow me to lecture you a bit and address those who perhaps are not familiar with what happens every day in this building. My dear citizens of the world, today we're beginning a new session of the General Assembly, the representative and policy-making body that is the most important such body in the United Nations organization. And for the next 12 months, the 193 member states represented here will be debating about 330 resolutions on as many topics, all of them of huge global interest. We have planned to have about 100 plenary meetings and an indeterminate number of working and negotiating meetings. This year, we must now take on 34 mandates on various topics of global interest, and we must organize 18 summits, fora, and high-level meetings. Finally, during this session, we will have to lead and facilitate 13 intergovernmental processes on issues of extreme importance, such as reforms of the Security Council, revitalization of the General Assembly, and aligning the General Assembly with the 2030 Agenda, just to name a few. Perhaps this may be obvious to many, or all of you rather, but let me assure you, this is not obvious for the great majority of persons, and it's for this reason that I have insisted with the communication team of the Secretariat to highlight even more the work of this assembly. Communication, therefore, must be a priority in this session. Your Excellencies, the regular working program and the mandates that have been entrusted to me are many in number, and I am sure everything will be duly implemented with your support. However, as is customary, following my dialogue with many of you, with leaders and representatives of various member states, and following the analysis of the most pressing items on the global agenda, I have taken the liberty of proposing the following 7 priority items for this session. First of all, gender equality and empowering women must continue to be a priority until it is actually achieved. In all the forums available to me, I will be pushing for the empowering of women and girl children. Life is better for everyone when each person, without discrimination, has access on an equal footing to all human rights. The second priority will be promoting and implementing new global compacts on migration and refugees. It is our duty to seek to protect the millions of refugees across the world and gear our efforts towards safe, orderly, and regular migration. The conference, slated for Morocco in December, will be a landmark conference to this end. And the third priority will be providing opportunities for decent work for youths, women, and persons with disabilities as one of the most important challenges in our public policy fora and challenges to the development and sustainability of social security systems. And fourth, I will work towards focusing more on the environment. The General Assembly should become one of those voices calling for public awareness of pollution, plastic pollution, as an environmental danger affecting everyone, affecting the health and well-being of persons and ecosystems across the world. We will also prepare the way for the summit on climate change announced by the Secretary General for next year. The fifth priority has to do with the importance of strengthening political and social commitment toward persons with disabilities. It is still necessary for us to raise more awareness of the specific needs of such people. Access, inclusive education, and quality and decent jobs are challenges facing the greatest minority in humanity, that is, people with disabilities. My sixth priority would be to revitalize the United Nations. We will work on 3 tracks. We will implement reforms of the system. We will strengthen the process of revitalizing the General Assembly to optimize its working methods and boost its deliberative and policy-making roles. And we will also continue the reform of the Security Council and do so in consonance with the will and commitment of states. The seventh but very significant priority is peace and security. The armed conflicts taking place as we speak should cause us the greatest of sorrow. The problems of security experienced by many societies are also a huge challenge for governments and indeed for this organization. This assembly must become the main peace-building organ, and it must do so through a preventive approach. Sustainable peace must be anchored in dialogue and understanding. Facilitating this dialogue will be my priority. Furthermore, there is a recognition of the fundamental role to be played by youths in building safe societies and in preventing conflicts. The General Assembly must promote efforts to ensure that youths have greater opportunities for political participation and to avoid those conditions that lead them towards violent extremism. Two major concepts and strategic visions will underpin my work this year: peace and human rights for all, and strengthen multilateralism with global leadership and shared responsibilities. And around these two main thrusts, I will be working on these 7 priorities, which, although ambitious, will be guiding my work during this session to achieve my goal of building a more relevant United Nations for everyone. Your Excellencies, one of the most effective ways of measuring the impact of our organization is, I am sure, how we implement the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The major indicator of success of the work of this assembly will be people's well-being in their daily lives and in their prospects for the future. This impact will be ultimately what will make the United Nations the one that will continue, the organization that is most relevant and valuable to the world. Our working agenda is huge. My role will be to promote dialogue and facilitate consensus during our consultation and ongoing dialogue so that we can take action-oriented decisions. Your Excellencies, we are now beginning a new session with a heavy agenda in the next few weeks in September. We will finalize preparations for the Nelson Mandela Peace Summit, slated for the 24th of September. This event in honor of the centenary of the birth of Madiba will afford all states the historic opportunity to present their points of view on how to prevent conflict and give fresh impetus to building peaceful societies. The 25th of September is the first of 9 days of the general debate, and once again our leaders will be able to listen to and be listened to in the only forum that exists for this purpose, this General Assembly. It is in this house where all nations will equally have the same seat, the same button to vote or request to use the floor, the same right to hear and be heard. I encourage delegations to be represented in the General Assembly Hall while our heads of state and government make their speeches, deliver their statements. Only by listening to each other can we hear each other's aspirations shared for peace, security, human rights, and sustainable development. I assure you that I will support and lead participation of all states, efforts for all meetings and conferences at the high level on health, climate change, South-South cooperation, mix among other mandates, and I hope that they will all be successful. It is my interest that these deliberations arrive at useful and concrete recommendations. Your Excellencies, as I did when I was elected, let me now assure you that I shall uphold in a spirit of absolute accountability the code of ethics as President of the General Assembly and the precepts of the United Nations Charter and the rules of procedure of this General Assembly. During this session of the General Assembly, we will commemorate 70 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Resolution 217/A of the 10th of December 1948, is perhaps one of the most important resolutions ever adopted by this assembly, in that it signaled the beginning of a new era, one of universalization of human rights. Sometimes we fail to realize that each day, through the resolutions adopted in this very hall, we are making history. Let us continue to make history and build a world that is more equal and free, more sustainable and respectful of nature, more inclusive and caring. Thank you very much.